Thank you so much for tuning into my show. My next guest today is somebody who is not only very actively engaged in Second Amendment rights in our communities, he's always been very actively engaged in it on a nationwide level. He's got a real interesting background in business in Arizona, which is where I met him at a Gun Owners of America event in Phoenix, Arizona about 2 months ago. And just meeting with him, I said, this is somebody that has a lot of really good, positive information that I thought would make a great guest on my show today, which is brought to you by Revere Payments. So if you are in the gun industry, gun business, and you don't want to be canceled by regular banks, you can go to reverepayments.com/WWFA. You'll probably see some savings in your credit card processing, and you won't get canceled. Jeff Fleetham, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, I love the background. I love the Arizona flag in the background.
It is a great flag. It is the best flag, by the way. So I'll give you a thumbnail of how we got this flag.
I love
Arizona
that.
State Rifle and Pistol Association has been around for well over 100 years before the state, before there was a state of Arizona. And there used to be national shooting back at Camp Perry. I think it was probably Camp Perry, but Arizona put together a shooting team to go back there, and they didn't have a banner. They didn't have a banner. Everybody else had a banner. You know, they have a cool banner. You got this, you got like the banner, the flag of Maryland, which doesn't make any sense to me. But so these guys made this banner, and this was the banner, and it ultimately ended up being the state flag of Arizona. Probably to the, probably if our governor knew that that's why it was the state flag, she'd probably try to change it. But,
oh no!
It's a state flag that was really related to the Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association, which I am a member on, and so that's how that happened. So there's a long answer to a short question. So
I love it. I love the history. I always love history on our states because we don't realize, of course, especially when we don't live there. Even when we live there, we don't realize what some of these things mean, and
right.
Some of that history tells us things about ourselves and our state that may motivate us to be a little bit more involved. Like in that case, it's from a Second Amendment, event. And now it has a little bit more meaning to the reason for the Second Amendment in Arizona.
Right.
In Louisiana, ours, of course, is a pelican who is plucking the skin off her chest to feed to her babies. And it's a symbol of when there's a lack of food or a lack of nourishment that the mother takes care of her young with her own blood, which is kind of why, I guess politicians in Louisiana have adopted that they need the blood of others to feed themselves. I went in some different direction with that story.
So that's okay. That's okay. And it brings up something that probably you can do this to me if I'm going overboard or something. We the people that decide to run for elected office, we love them and we support them, and then we hate them. It's like we have these little kids when they're babies. We spend a couple years teaching them how to talk and walk, and then the rest of their lives to sit down and be quiet. So not all of our electeds are bad. Some of them run into stonewalling, as evidenced by the SAVE Act in our Congress right now.
Yeah,
there's stonewalling. There's people that want to get that done. There's people that are being chastised for not being more active or more militant about it. Mm-hmm. But there's certain things that are, our legislature has put into place over these years. That doesn't mean that the people that aren't getting it done are bad, but there's leadership that's not letting it happen, right? And that's my opinion, right?
Right.
I have an opinion. I also wear a ballistic vest from time to time. So, but anyway, that's the thing. I was on the school board for a while. I ran for school board. If you want to see something that's crazy town, run for a school board. I suggest anybody wanting to run for state legislature or United States Congress or Senate, that first they must have been on a school board.
I thought dog catcher was first.
No, it's not. School boards are pretty brutal, by the way. So anyway,
Well,
so there you
what's
go.
interesting, you made a point how, these politicians that run for office, we all love them. They're our heroes. They're our friends. They're our relatives. There's somebody that we meet and we go, wow, you're a really great person. And they go, yeah, I love freedom. I love liberty. Go, yeah, you're my guy. Or maybe, for a Democrat, they might say, yeah, I love socialism and communism. And somebody goes, yeah, that's, and they,
No, they love democracy. They forget that we're a republic. So they love it,
good
like
point.
that the two wolves and a lamb deciding what's for dinner. So that's what
Right.
they love.
Well, what's interesting is, and when they get in office, they're either corrupted, like you're saying, or they get a thirst for power, and they realize that some of the tactics that we see in public are the tactics that not only keep them in power, but help them advance and get more power. But then the other thing that I talk about regularly is that I think that when politicians get in office, they become bureaucrats. They go, they look at they get there and they go, wow, government really needs money to operate. And the way we get money is that we either have to raise taxes or we create rules and laws. And when people violate them, we can fine them. And when they don't do it again, we can penalize them. And then we can stay in power through the control of society through these rules and laws, not only restraining people's rights, but taking their money. And they become bureaucrats, and they find that this process funds the government that provides their salary and the trucks and the cars that drive them around.
Well, I think that is what happens to some. Others, I don't believe, personally, I don't believe the ones that I have known aren't. There's some that are like that, but there's some that aren't. There's some that ramble on and on about our freedoms and our liberties, and it's just platitudes, right? You know, this is what someone wants to hear, and I'm going to point at this guy over here for being a guy that's not getting anything done. However, in the back rooms, I'm stonewalling him, right?
Right.
So we've got a system, probably, and I don't have experience. I have experience with our state government mainly, but I know some people in our federal government and some people that that spend time with President Trump, and and the thing that I see is our government structures, whether it be municipal, state, county, or federal, they're run by 25-year-old staffers that just came out of school, and people don't read the bills. What, like Nancy Pelosi, we have to pass the bill to see what's in the bill, and the reason is because the staffers read the bills and give them their interpretation, and that's a problem. Now, when you mention bureaucrats, I have this opinion. So I came from private sector and got appointed by Governor Ducey to run this state agency, which
he's been on my show, by the way.
Oh, Doug?
Yeah.
I like Doug. He's a good. Excuse me. I like him a lot, and we did some great stuff with Arizona in my agency as well. My agency in particular, we were Doge before Doge, and
so he appointed you to something, you said?
Yeah, he appointed me to run the Arizona Registrar of Contractors. In Arizona, to be a contractor, a construction contractor, you must have a license.
Okay.
And you mentioned those licenses. You love those licenses, right? So, and that licensing scheme was, and this is anecdotal, but there's still some history on it. That licensing scheme was put into place in 1931 to actually as a restraint against unions. So, in other words, but anyway, so I did that. We made a lot of changes. We reduced time frames. We allowed certain people to get licenses that had never been able to get licenses before. And the whole idea was, the people outside the walls of the government building, they're the customer,
Right.
right? They're the citizens, they're customer. However, just like big corporations, whether it be, General Motors or any of these others, it's almost like it's an us against them,
Hmm.
we're in here, I ain't coming out and you ain't coming in, kind of thing. So my whole background and has always been about a customer service type of thing. And that's whether it's in government or whether in your personal business or whatever. There's sometimes it's better to be happy than right, but also I'm serving somebody.
But
And it's not
our
always
government forgets that it is, providing a service
right.
to the citizens as the customers.
The individuals that make up the government, which includes us,
Right.
forgets that we have a product. In Arizona, we had the thing that I had is a contractor's license, and then we had the guy that wanted to get it. And there's a whole bunch of crap in between there that didn't need to be done. The idea is to get those two things closer so it happens faster. If you're going to have that, that barrier to entry or that kind of thing, make it so it's not stupidly complicated.
Right.
So, as an example, when I first got there, the license application, if you printed it all out, was somewhere around 30 pages. And it's probably only 30 pages because they hadn't had a chance to make it 50. But
Right.
so somebody, not the government, the individuals in the government going, hey, this is a good idea, or hey, I don't know about this, but we should probably do this. And so I asked my team when I first got there, point it to statute. That's the black part of the law that you have to follow. It's the law,
Right.
whether you like it or not. And in 2 weeks, the application was 10 pages long. So, and so it's that kind of thing. You have to, and some people in government, Governor Ducey looked at it that way. At least that's my experience with him. And he was a private sector guy that came into government,
Right.
Like Elon Musk coming into government to do the Doge thing. Everybody goes, why did he leave? It's because he was ready to, like, his head was exploding.
Yeah, because when you start seeing what's actually going on and how
Right.
bad the fraud and the misappropriation is.
It's not fraud, it's theft, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Good point. I love it.
Kind word. That's a very kind word. So it's theft. But and the bureaucracy, my opinion, and if I were king of the universe, things would be a whole lot better, right?
I love it.
So
well, we just want to make you king of the NRA, but that's one of the
right. So Mercatus has some writings about this from years ago, especially Jimmy Carter. Probably, it caused a lot of problems in our country, but he had some ideas about reducing
Department of Education,
the bureaucracy. Well, really, LBJ and some of those other douchebags. Excuse me, I said that out loud. You block that out. So, but the idea is we try to change things from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at it, it's almost like a Jenga tower. And the way any bureaucracy, the way you fix it is you take the bottom and the top at the same time, remove stuff. And so if your front line is looking at you as an elected, you, William, just been elected as king of the universe or governor of Louisiana. There's some history there, right? So
I love it.
So you've got all these people and you just change leadership, boom, and nothing changes. It's because a guy at the front line is saying, look, who cares what you say? You're going to be gone in 4 years anyway.
Right.
I'm just going to sit here. You're not going to do the painful task of removing me because we've got all these laws about employees that you can fire people or you can terminate them, but it's painful. So you just go, I'm not going to do that. I'm gone in 4 years, so nothing changes. So you have to go through those painful tasks to remove the stuff on the bottom and remove the stuff at the top and the middle that doesn't work. and you just ultimately do it. We had an agency that went from 150 to 90 something. The goal wasn't to fire people. The goal was to become more efficient. And as people left, or there were some bad actors, as people left, we didn't refill the positions, or there were bad actors, removed them, went through the painful process that were required by law. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on and on.
No, no,
that's
but,
kind of
but
what,
no, I get it, because that's what a lot of politicians. That's why bureaucracy ends up growing instead of shrinking,
it is
because it's
shrinking
more.
now, and thanks to President Trump.
It is, but
Yep.
that's why so many. So look, and I'm going to be a little critical, not necessarily of Trump, but but of that it's not shrinking fast enough,
Right, right.
and and some of that just because it's so embedded in concrete in
Oh yeah,
DC, but also it's just not moving quick enough. We have
right.
so much bureaucracy has grown so much over the years. It's circumvented our
Absolutely.
Constitution between the rules and laws and regulations that they create within the bureaucratic agencies instead of going through Congress. And then and I'm glad that you brought this up with a unique thought when you said that it's painful to shrink, because politicians realize that when they start firing people or getting rid of people to make it more efficient, on the outside it looks like they don't care, they're
Yeah,
uncompassionate, they're being ideological, and people are afraid they're going to lose services, and then the narratives come out that they're going to remove services next, and it's just easier to sit in a term for 4 years and just go, hey, look at me, I'm doing this right, I'm doing that right, don't you love me, keep
right.
cheering because I'll be gone in a couple more years, and the
And maybe
bureaucrats go, yay, we got 5 more years to retirement.
right. Yeah, and it's like that, and I'm not cutting anybody any slack. I'm just saying it's tough. And you have, if you're going to jump in there like Elon did and his team, which a lot of people didn't realize those guys were like government employees. So, these guys
Right,
are, they got our social security number. So does every employee in the Social Security Administration, right?
right,
So, they got our fingerprints. Everybody's got our fingerprints.
right.
Everybody's got our social security. So
And
it was, it was
if they don't have one, AI pretty soon AI will be able to generate it for you.
But that's a whole nother thing. But AI isn't artificial. It's just a giant web crawler on steroids, and it's like crap in, crap out. If we want more information to go in, then we've got to start promoting, promoting our messages in the Ethernet. So when it goes out there to grab the stuff that's right, it's going to pull that in. It's crap in, crap out.
Right.
And we put this thing on some and I don't get me, I'm going to be rambling on forever, but so that's a whole nother month of discussion. So
Well, let's switch to gun rights.
yeah,
That's something that you're very actively involved in. I know that you are, you're looking at wanting to be on the board of the NRA. Is that correct?
yes,
And so you're very involved in gun rights in Arizona, but you're also very involved in gun rights across the country. And I'd like to switch a little bit to something where we talk a little bit about gun rights, where they're under attack the most. And I think it's one of the freedoms that we forget about. And again, earlier you brought up something that made me think about this. We think about gun rights as being the main right in the Bill of Rights. We forget about all the other rights in our Bill of Rights, and we forget about our First Amendment because we take it for granted. So we automatically skip to the Second Amendment, which is something that we seem to have to be fighting for constantly, always being aware, because there's people always trying to create laws. And I said this in my last interview that gun laws help the criminals more than they help the law-abiding citizens. But I want your opinion. I want your opinion on where you think, we have to watch, or things that you might be working on, or things that you're aware of.
so do you mind if I there's something that I posted a few years ago that, if you don't mind if I read, it's not
You
like
go right ahead. I'd love it.
so rights are not conferred by anyone, and they cannot be taken away or altered by anyone. They are inherent. You can call them natural or God-given, depending on your metaphysical inclination. They belong to all of us equally, simply by virtue of the fact that we are human. Properly understood, the Constitution does not exist to give us our rights, but protect the rights we were born with, and that's all the rights, And
Right.
we being in the gun world a lot, it's many of us, we always are talking about infringement on the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the right to self-defense, right? And we call it the Second Amendment. We call it the Second Amendment because in our Bill of Rights, it's written that way, right? But if you get in and look at stuff like Robert Boatman, have you ever read anything by him? The
I
constitutional right,
haven't.
the obligation to carry a gun, the constitutional right, and the obligation to carry a gun. After reading that, when I was a kid growing up here, I mean, there's a picture of me standing in my front yard when I was like 10 or 11. My parents were 12, maybe. I got my first, they gave me for my birthday. Think about that. These middle income folks standing in the middle of what is now considered the Arcadian neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona. Ooh, standing there in my front yard, holding my 22 long rifle, one
Wow.
round, bolt action, pull the plunge. Bling.
Well, love it. I love
So,
it.
so, uh, but so the Constitution, and I never really thought about in my whole life thought about our right to bear arms. It just seemed to be there, it wasn't like going, oh, my Second Amendment and stuff like that. But even then, there were people chipping things away, and many of us weren't like looking because it wasn't directly affecting us,
Right.
or there wasn't a giant message bullhorn telling us that if we want to have a gun, that we're like a monster and a
Right.
murderer. So what changed my whole thought process on this, and I'd heard about some stuff, but I was busy being a really important business dude, driving around, growing my family, buying a house, trying to make payments and stuff. I wasn't paying attention to that. And then boom, up comes 9/11 in 2021, in 2001. And I remember thinking to myself, I was actually sitting on the edge of my bed watching the news, because I always watch the news in the morning. I can't remember what I watched, Fox Business, whatever the news was right then, lacing my boots up to go to work. And I saw that happen. And I get a little verklempt here, and I start thinking about that and I go, holy crap. What about my kids?
Right.
What about my kids? What's going to happen to them? What does this mean? What does all this stuff mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that was for I think a lot of people in America. I mean, we hear about World War II, and our parents our fathers and our parents. We hear about that, but that's like almost anecdotal, right? I mean, it's
right.
So we haven't seen it. Like all of our guys, all of the young men, like it might be your age. I'm like just an old gray hair dude that have been fighting.
There's gray hair on the side here.
Been fighting the GWAT for 25, 30 years because because we blew it in Lebanon in 1983. Pardon me. So
You're right.
But I started thinking, and then for some reason, this Susanna Grupt, the Luby's incident in Texas, I'm starting to hear about that, and then I heard about this Robert Boatman article, and I read this: the constitutional right and social obligation to carry a gun.
I'm gonna have to read that. Email that to me. I'm gonna read that.
It's and I'm not sure if I agree with everything he says, but it was impactful to me. And so I think he has another article, something about Glock. I went out and I did some studying. I went out and got my Glock 17 because boom, that was it. Right, it's before the 19. I got my Glock 17. So I went to the range. I poked some holes in some paper. I took a lesson by a guy. I took a lesson from a guy that was probably the worst of the worst. One of those guys that says, well, if somebody breaks into your house, you empty your magazine. Even if he falls outside, you drag him back inside. And you go, oh, great. That's a great way to go to prison. So I knew he was wrong. So I shot some holes, and I went home, unloaded my gun, put it in a box, and left it there. Because that's what you do with a gun, right? So I'm just kidding. I'm being a little sarcastic here, but I'm
Well, what's
reading
it? What's
Robert Boatman, and he says if you have one, you have to be able, ready, and able to use it, not if, but when you need it.
Well,
As evidence.
to that point, of course, we met because I went out there to speak about my carjacking
Right,
incident,
right,
and so I learned from that incident that before I carried a gun for protection. I said, okay, I'm gonna
right,
carry a gun for protection, and that was why, and I didn't think anything further than that. After the event, I've now started telling people that if you're going to have that, if you're going to accept that responsibility to have a gun, or you're going to take on that responsibility to have a gun in public, you need to do more than just going and poking some holes in some paper.
right.
You actually need to actively do other forms of training, and
Right.
it's something that I learned from that incident.
Yeah,
So it probably ties in with this topic you're talking about, where it's your not only your right, but your obligation to constitutionally carry. And I think that's what he was saying there.
yeah,
It's almost your it's almost an obligation to train along with that right.
right. Because look, you have it. And look, we're probably preaching to the choir on your podcast here, but uh, the thought that many people, having a gun, and there's some of us in our gun community, our firearms community, that you know, it's not a toy, right? It's
Right.
kind of fun to go out and do some of these matches and stuff, but I went, uh, I went and I grabbed the best instruction that I could find and I could afford, right?
Yeah.
And then I started going up to Gunsight Academy in Paulden, which is a premier gunfighting school, not cowboy gunfighting, but gunfighting school. And I am not in their top tier. I am not a tack driver. But these were the best instructors. These men and some women at the time, they have some more women instructors. These are experts. They are the best of the best of the best. And they are patient with me and they show me what it means. And by the time I came out of there, they said, you take there's a 1 week class you have to take before you qualify for anything else. It's called the Pistol 250. It's a 1 week long class, 5 days. You run through about 1,000 rounds. So your hand's fat, you've got some dirt and gran in your teeth. But they said sometime during that week, you're going to have an epiphany. They call it the Gunsight Epiphany. And that's when I thought, oh my God, I'm doing this for when. And when I really understood the difference between when and if. If doesn't prepare you for anything. If is like making a decision that you're going to go to the store
Mhm.
and you starve to death in your house. I
Right.
made the decision. A decision is not an action. An action's an action.
It's interesting because when I got trained and when I originally was going to carry, I learned more about how to avoid a Second Amendment,
Yes.
a self-defense
Yeah,
situation. And
absolutely.
then I was taught more discernment
Right.
that, that of course training has come a long way from when the guy told
Right.
you to bring him back in the house. And you have to train to make these split second decisions on, you know, am I going to have to use my weapon? And then you still and all don't train to I'm going to kill somebody. You train to stop a
Stop
threat.
the threat.
Yeah,
Stop the threat. Right.
exactly. And so that's exactly what when I went, when I went through my carjacking experience, I can remember, I just things that I train that become second nature. When I pulled my gun out of my pocket, I didn't automatically take a shot. I evaluated the situation.
Right.
So I did, there was just lots of things that came into play. I didn't make the decision to take a shot until one, I realized that my life or my wife's life was in imminent danger,
Right.
which it was. And that's when it's when you make the decision. But another thing that you pointed out that I want to go backwards a little bit in the interview is when you talk about the article about the that not only the right but the obligation to carry in public. And we go back to the creation of the Second Amendment. The founding fathers didn't just come out willy-nilly with their mindset of, oh, we're going to give everybody the right to carry a gun. And of course, the Democrats think that it's about hunting, and Republicans and gun people know that it's more about self-protection.
Hold on, it's not Republicans. It's not everybody.
Oh yeah, it's
okay.
I'll give me your clarification, because I love where this is going.
So there are people that talk, anybody that says common sense gun laws, doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on, they don't believe you have a right. And there's people on both sides of the aisle that way.
Right. Correct.
They will pander. They will pander. I've had Republican candidates in Arizona pander to the Second Amendment group. I even saw one in a range that shot with an arm behind the back and one leg up, and I noticed her eyes were closed. And why are your eyes closed? Well, because I might have to shoot in the middle of the night when I just wake up. So she went to a range to do that. She was not a Second Amendment person. That's just, she was pandering to the crowd, and that happens a lot on both sides of the aisle. So we have to be cautious about those people, because there's been people, should someone that's a complete mental case have this deadly weapon? Probably not. But you have to be careful. This stuff, and you've recognized it, William. It's incrementalism. It's like how the anti. I don't call them anti-gun people. It's the anti-self-defense people, because so in Europe, in England, they took away the guns, and now the only thing you can do is you have to fight the guy with the machete because you don't have a gun. And only certain cultures can carry the knife or the machete.
And
you're trying to defend yourself against a guy with the machete, then you go to jail for trying to defend yourself. Because after all, shouldn't you just take the slash and just go, oh well, I'm such a good guy, but I'm sorry.
Going back to finish my thought about the article that you brought up. I read a book that's called The Second Amendment Primer. And I think the guy's name is it Les Miles, or not Les Miles? It is, I forget the guy's name. It's either Les, he has Les or Miles in it. But one of the things I got out of that book, which I thought was remarkable, is he did a deep dive on how the founding fathers got the idea of the Second Amendment to put to our Bill of Rights. And it wasn't because it's our divine right. It wasn't just because our creator said we can have the right to self-defense. They went back through history, thousands of years of history, and looked at civilizations that did not have that right, or the ones that had that right, and they could point to the need to not only have the right to defend yourself, but the need for communities and civilizations to be able to have those rights to protect a civilization in general. So we're not just protecting ourselves within our civilization. We are actually protecting civilization, not just from government, but the overreach of evil that will use its power to overwhelm us if we did not have a right to protect ourselves.
Absolutely. And not only that, the founding fathers are right in the middle of a thing with a government that didn't want them to have guns, so that government wouldn't have to worry about putting its thumb on us. And those are, and I've got a whole list of that stuff. Sejah Beccaria, his article on the works on crime and punishment, false ideas of utility, which is very the false ideas of utility, to reinforce the same point with timeless logic. Laws forbidding people to bear arms are of this nature. They only disarm those that are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws place the assaulted at a disadvantage and the assailant at an advantage, and they multiply rather than decrease the number of murders, since an unarmed person may be attacked with greater confidence than someone is armed. What? Why is that difficult for anybody to understand?
That's very profound. I love the way that's worded. Please email that to me.
I would like to say it's mine, but somebody's going to go, that's Caesar Beccaria. But, you know, it proves that disarming, law-abiding, you know, we always say it and we talk about it and people go, you know, good guy with a gun, all that kind of stuff. And there's examples everywhere. I think NRA, I can't remember if the NRA does some things, and I know some other of the firearms supporting or the right to defend people have those articles. But they have this one where they publish these articles about people who have saved themselves or others through self-defense. Right. So it's awesome. So it's on
the USCCA site too. I don't know if you're
right. Yeah.
I saw. I was looking at that the other day on the USCCA site. I really believe in concealed carry insurance. Well, you're really involved in Arizona. I want to go back to focus on some Arizona stuff. You know, where can you see some places in Arizona where gun rights are under attack? I know you have a very Democrat, left-leaning governor, you know, in Arizona right now. But you've got it's funny. Arizona is kind of like opposite of like Oregon and Washington, and I'll explain. Oregon and Washington by land mass and voting is really more of a conservative-minded Republican state. But the problem is the Democrats learned how to gerrymander the districts through the big cities to overpopulate their legislative body with Democrats. Right. And that's how they end up with these anti-gun laws, like these stupid laws that get rid of hunting and to make hunting and fishing illegal in the state of Washington. You've heard about that, right?
Yeah,
So Arizona's kind of opposite. You guys end up having a mostly Republican legislature, but somehow or another you end up with a Democrat governor. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And so I don't understand that. But that being said, are you watching any type of legislation that has, you know, they've tried to bring up recently that's anti-Second Amendment?
Well, so Governor Hobbs, everything that she does, we have a couple legislators. We've got a pretty good legislature. We have the majority, which is nice right now. One of the common misconceptions about Arizona is that Arizona has always been deep red. It's not the case. I've lived here since 1959. Right. Arizona's always been kind of some shade of purple. Whether, you know, we've had like our Democratic governors, Democratic this. You know, there was a time when, you know, when Governor Ducey was in place, he had all the executive branch offices were, you know, elected offices were Republican, and that wasn't always the case. And so people that come to look at Arizona or move to Arizona in the last even 15 or 20 years think that Arizona is this deep red state because of Barry Goldwater.
Right, well, right.
That's just not true. It never has been true. You know, you got Dee Concini, you got, you know, Raul Castro, you've got Janet Napolitano, you've got all of these other people that have been in here, both in our state legislatures and in our federal Congress and Senates. And so because of that, there's this inability to understand that the real key to election, my opinion, and there's others that agree with me too, the real key to Arizona's election is the independent. You know, we talk about, there's people going, look, you know, in my party, look, I was a 2016 delegate in Cleveland. I was a chief floor whip for Arizona's Trump delegation there. I was a 2020. Hold on here. I've got a little problem. I've got a power problem starting. So I was a 2020 delegate for a President Trump delegate. So I get it.
Really?
So we have, we've got, and these numbers aren't going to be right. We've got 1.5 million Democrats, registered Democrats. We got 1.8, and these numbers aren't exact, so I don't want anybody,
Right.
coming at me. So 1.8 million Republicans. We go, oh yeah, but guess what's in the middle? 1.6 million independents.
Wow.
So that's who you have to get. But everybody wants to go, and this is, I'm sorry, but everybody wants to go, we want to get the true Americans. We want to get the ultra MAGAs. Because that's who we need. That's only 10%.
So Arizona's problem is really more about strategy than it is about where the state actually lies ideologically.
That's my opinion. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we don't know, because what's happening is, the Republican goes in and I'm super MAGA, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and they only go after the right registered or the registered Republican registrations, instead of saying, hey, look, I'm on the right, but let's do some things to help bring some people together. I'm pulling that out of my ears real quick.
That's true. It's a big tent. It's a big tent. A lot of people think, a lot of people on the far right, there's some people think Trump's, and a lot of people, on the left think he's an insane. He is not any of those things. He's a brilliant dude. I know people who've been friends with him for a long time. He's not. He does things that piss people off. Can I say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Got people that piss him off. But here's what he's a friggin' disruptor. So, and a lot of the stuff he does are dog whistles, right?
So you just gave me a thought, and I use that line regularly. If I'm
ranting, I'm sorry.
If I'm talking about, I have a guest and they give me a thought, I want to give them credit for it. There's a lot of people who don't like Trump because he is a disruptor, because he can be crass, he can be brusque, he can be, just irritating and just say some stupid things sometimes. Okay. I'm kind of just setting the stage a little bit here, but whether you like him or don't like him, it's almost like we need a disruptor in DC to just be a cog in the wheel to stop DC from the direction that it's going in, which is robbing our freedoms, running up the debt. Whether he's actually doing the right kind of disruption or not can be a matter of opinion by some, by other people. But, the disruptor part is something that I think some people see and like. Maybe they say, well, subconsciously, they don't care whether his disruption is making a positive or a negative influence. They just like feeling that that there is somebody in DC who is changing it or knocking down the barriers, excuse me, or causing enough problems to interrupt the system as it has been. Right. Excuse me. I was on a roll there too.
So there you go. So but it's, so I don't want to get into too much in the Trump thing.
Me either.
I voted for him. I voted for him 3 times, and that's not a badge of courage. I've been great, and I don't consider myself MAGA. I've had some MAGA hats, and I've been in the back rooms with some of those guys and stuff like that. And I like his approach on many of these things because it's a private sector approach. And what we need is private sector approach in the Beltway. And like you mentioned, and there's some of our electeds that go back there and they try to do that. And it's like, just trying to, and some of them stay and try to do it and get blamed for not doing anything. And some of them just go, I'm done.
And again, I'm not defending Trump at all whatsoever here. I'm just because I'm more anti-establishment, I'm more anti-government than I am anti-individual. Like I don't actively promote or criticize Trump, and much like I don't actively promote or criticize other politicians that I may like or dislike, because I'm more of a anti-establishment, anti-bureaucracy,
Right.
anti-government guy. I
Right.
kind of look at it a little bit differently, because I think that when you start calling out individuals, it becomes more of a distraction than it does aiming, no pun intended, at the problems, the actual problems that I think are within our bureaucracy or growing government. So whether you like Trump or not, the fact that he is a disruptor may seem abrasive to
Right.
some, and many people like strength, so they see his abrasiveness as strength. But being a disruptor is somebody that's going in there and dismantling a system that the people see is not working for our country. They see it as is causing more problems in our country. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yes. Yeah. And you're pulling of the one of the blocks of the Jenga tower apart at a time, right?
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
it's top and bottom.
Right.
I mean, all you have to do is listen to Scott Bessent, and you go, "The guy's brilliant," or So the
Well, we've
Treasury
had such a
Secretary.
good conversation. We're going on. We don't have much time left.
I know.
I
I'm
want to
sorry.
ask you a few questions. Oh, don't
Sure.
gosh, don't apologize. I'm enjoying the real conversation. Um, Going back to, are you seeing anti-gun laws go through the legislature in Arizona right now? Is there anything that's on your radar that you might say, there's this law that bans little old grannies from having guns? I don't know. I'm making that up. I mean, are there laws that you can point to that we need to know about?
So there's always stuff that the Democrats try to push through, but because we have the legislature and we have one of our representatives, I don't know if you've ever met Quan Nguyen, LD1 congressman.
Mm-mm.
He crushes those before they can get out of committee many times. Where some of the things, so as long as we have that, I think we're good. There's nothing horrific. There might be something that's weird that gets to the committees, but it's not going anywhere.
Oh, good.
So, but where we are suffering some problems, some issues, when we talk about this Second Amendment thing or this gun rights thing, it's incrementalism for these people.
Right.
They pull away. You can't have you can't have a shooting range there. Oh, you can't have, you can only use copper. You can only use solid copper bullets. You can't use lead. You can't do that. You can't do these other things. And so we go, well, that's not a big deal. That's not affecting my rights to be defended. And you go, well, wait a second. Now you can't hunt if you're a hunter. I'm not a hunter.
Right.
I'm not a hunter. I did as someone when I was kids, but I don't do that anymore. So those are the things that I think we need to look at, those things on the periphery,
right,
that are getting, and that's probably happening in all these Second Amendment states, these, shall carry states, and it's probably happening in, maybe Louisiana, Dakotas, and stuff like that. They're chipping away at it from the outside.
Exactly.
And that's the stuff that we need to be particularly aware of. I know Arizona State Rifle and Pistol Association, we're really aware of the onslaught that happens with our ranges. We've got Ben Avery Range here in the northern part of the Phoenix Metro Valley, which is a premier gun range in the United States and the world. It's got some, I think a 2-mile range out there. They have all sorts of things out there, but there's people that we have to be careful of that would love to sell that and turn it into condos, right? But then where does all this stuff go? So there was new legislation put together that I think that we just got it signed. I've been traveling, so I'm not sure, that makes the closing of any game and fish managed range or government agency game and fish range, if that is closed, it has to be approved by the legislature. It can't just be an arbitrary thing. So that's really a big deal, as long as we maintain, as long as the citizens of the state of Arizona maintain it. And as long as they understand the reason they moved here is for the opportunities and the lower tax and the ability to defend oneself. And you don't move here and then start voting to make Karen Bass the mayor of Phoenix. We got a mayor. We got the worst mayor of the planet anyway. A worse governor. Governor Hobbs and Knucklehead Newsom, the pretty boy over there, are exactly the same. And then we've got our Luan in New Mexico. The governor of New Mexico is bat crazy.
I was just talking about New Mexico in the last one. I was surprised how blue it is.
It is. It's interesting, and that's because of federal employees. There's a vast amount of reservation stuff. I get it. You're going to vote for where you're going to vote for whoever's going to give your dinner. But there's places like Rio Rancho. There's massive places like Rio Rancho where my daughter lives that are completely blue. There's American flags everywhere. There's all military. But you get the metro areas. If you give somebody everything, they're going to keep voting to keep giving me everything, right? That's
exactly
what I say.
Exactly.
Man with the bruise in his forehead.
You brought up an important point. Did Karen Bass now get enough votes to be mayor of Phoenix too?
No, I was just saying that. Well, you never know. You never know. So,
I mean, the mail-in ballots haven't stopped yet, but that's a whole other story. So where do you? So I'm asking you one last question that everybody has to answer to get out of my show. Where do you think we're losing freedom the fastest in America, or the most,
or the why? How about the why?
Ooh, that's interesting.
So we quit teaching civics in schools years ago. And so civics and history and geography, there's kids that graduate from university that can't find Texas on a map.
Yeah.
So where we're losing this is at the beginning, not at the end, where we see it, right? So many of these things have been happening for a long time, but now they're visible to us because of this, my computer, the internet. We can find these things. Imagine if we had Facebook, X, Instagram, Truth Social during the Civil War. Think about that.
Wow. Yeah.
So all of these things have been happening all along, little by little. And we've gone, oh, well, that's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. But what we forgot is that the real problem is the foundation is crumbling. And I love dogs. So the foundation, get that guy to shut up, right? So the foundation, our children don't know about what an awesome country this is, no matter what the flaws are. The fact that we killed we killed hundreds of thousands of Americans to free, in the Civil War, or that will go someplace else, no matter what the reasoning behind it was or whatever. We went to Lebanon in 1983. We went there. It was a horrible mistake that Reagan made. He didn't stand up to it enough. And that's what in 1983, that's supposedly where Hezbollah and all these other things came together. And that's why we've been fighting this 50-year war, that everybody's upset that Trump's trying to do something about it. And so anyway, stop.
Yeah, no,
we have to tell our kids when they're in, as soon as they understand, I pledge allegiance to the flag, to do this.
Mm-hmm.
We are this. Do we have flaws? Yes, but don't focus on the flaws. Know the flaws, but understand the positive thing. That's where it starts.
Right.
And because of that, that's why all these other freedoms that we recognize, but we forgot to look at the bush underneath. We forgot the clearing. We forgot to clear out. So that's
I love that answer. And only thing I'm going to add to kind of segue off of that is that enough people aren't getting involved, and the politicians know it. And you can see how few people are getting involved on the left with their leftist ideologies, and how many politicians are paying attention to them because they're screaming louder. Imagine if the educated on America, and I'm clarifying that to bounce off what you said, if people in America were truly educated about our history and our country and our rights, and everybody was immersed in that in the education, and those people got involved. I believe that is probably 80% or more of our country, and politicians would react differently. They would be a little bit more responsive to freedom, liberty, and the needs of its customers, i.e., citizens.
Don't forget, Wayne, it's not, it's, we talk about the politicians, but it's the elites and the academics.
Good point.
That's okay. The politicians are a reflection of what we know or don't know when we check the box.
Yep.
It's the elites and the academics that feed us, that feed our young people that information. That means when it goes to check the box, they're going, Professor Jimmy Bob Bow with the with the man bun on it, with the with the Birkenstock sandals without socks told me this. I'm going
to go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm with you because you just gave me in Louisiana. They're teaching children that carbon capture sequestration is a good thing for the environment, and they're already brainwashing them on that. But that's a whole other topic. Right. Jeff, any final words before we get to the hour mark?
I'm the luckiest man on an hour. Oh my God, I'm the luckiest man on the planet. Yeah.
No, I think I'm the luckiest man of the day here to have you on my show.
That's my tagline, because I had a chance to meet a guy like you at a place. I had to drive all the way over to Glendale, which is an hour drive, to go to the GOA thing. And I met my buddy from Louisiana that one of these days I'm going to go there. We're going to sit down by Cafe du Monde and drink some chicory coffee and eat beignets.
Yeah, we'll have some beignets. I'll get you a great po' boy. We'll have a good restaurant, and we'll go hang out at the World War II Museum for the day.
Ooh, yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome. I hope you get out here again too. I just finished an almost 4,000-mile road trip. I think when we first talked, from Mesa, Arizona, all the way up through Utah, through Logan, Bear Lake, across the bottom of Wyoming into South Dakota, and then drop back down through Colorado and Arizona, mostly non-interstates was the whole deal. So I love it. This country's awesome with all the flaws. It's just the best.
It's
in my opinion.
I agree with you. I wish people would stop looking at the individual flaws and look at how wonderful it is as a whole. On that note, I'm going to close out the show. Hang on one second, please, while I ask my guest to please share the show. Remember my sponsors, Bond Arms. Also, remember Patriot Mobile, where you get discounts on your cell phone service. Most people find lower rates, actually, and also some better coverage because they use all three carrier lines. Go to patriotmobile.com/WWFA. Thank you so much, Jeff Fleetham. Thank you for spending some time with me. Have a great day.
I'm going to send you my link. I'm going to send you my link to my petition, my NRA petition. And by the way, my pillows. I've got mini My Pillows.
I love it. Okay. All right, thank you, sir. We'll talk soon. Hang on one second.